Found out my brother was selling our mother's house because his wife accidentally slipped up near the frozen dumplings. Not in court, not during some dramatic family meeting. At a costless grocery store in Virginia on a Tuesday night around 8. I was standing there comparing discounted chicken packages because divorce leaves weird habits behind, even when the alimony checks arrive on time. And behind me, I heard, "If they close before the end of the month, we can finally get rid of that awful carpet." I knew the voice immediately. I turned around before I even thought about it. Kelly, my brother's wife. She was standing by the freezer section in a long beige coat, holding a bag of frozen broccoli, like she planned to study the ingredients for the next 10 years. Next to her stood one of those women from her Pilates class. White teeth, constant, oh my God, energy. Kelly didn't notice me at first. She still had time to say, "Honestly, I'm exhausted pretending we're waiting for Mom to decide." Then she looked up. There's a very specific moment when people realize they've said too much. Movies always exaggerate it. In real life, it's smaller. Something inside the face just drops slightly. She smiled too fast. "Nora, God, you scared me." I nodded. "Apparently." The other woman suddenly became deeply interested in yogurt labels. "How's your mom?" I asked. Kelly adjusted her hair. "She's okay. Tired." "And the house?" "What about it?" She already knew it was over. I looked at her for a few seconds. "You're selling it?" And this is the strange thing people do when they're caught lying too early. They get irritated that you asked directly. People hate direct questions when they planned to lie gradually. "We're just exploring options," she said. "Michael's trying to help her. The maintenance is too much." Help her? My brother hadn't visited our mother in almost a month. I set my basket down. Does she know? Kelly opened her mouth, closed it, then suddenly started talking about the housing market. Not my mother. Interest rates, property taxes, school districts. I stood there listening to a woman who had spent 5 years performing family explain mortgage trends just to avoid answering a simple question. That's when I realized something bad was happening. Not legally bad. Not yet. Human bad. My mother had lived in that house for 42 years. After the stroke, her left hand barely worked properly, but she still tried watering the flowers on the porch herself. Slowly, with breaks. Like if she stopped, the house itself would understand she was giving up. Michael was always her favorite child. That sounds cruel to say out loud, but most families already know these things without admitting them. He was 3 years younger than me. Easier. Prettier. People relaxed around him instantly. Even as a kid, teachers smiled at him first before speaking to the rest of us. After Dad died, Mom attached herself emotionally to Michael in this quiet, desperate way. Even when he forgot birthdays. Even when he borrowed money and temporarily forgot to pay it back. She always defended him. Michael's just going through a hard time. That hard time lasted about 15 years. I called her that same night. "Are you selling the house?" 3 seconds of silence, then, "Who told you?" Not no. I sat down on the edge of my bed. "Mom." She sighed heavily. I heard her kitchen chair creak through the phone. "Michael thinks it would make things easier." For who? Nora. Old people say strange things when they're exhausted. Not because they're confused, because they get tired of tension. She started talking about the stairs, the plumbing, property taxes, how difficult everything felt lately. All of it was true, except the important part. Where are you moving? Silence again. We haven't decided yet. That sentence usually means the decision's already been made. They just don't want you involved. 2 days later, I drove over unannounced. There was a U-Haul parked outside. Not huge, but big enough to make something unpleasant twist in my stomach. Michael was in the kitchen eating grapes directly out of the bag. Oh, hey. Like we'd run into each other at Walgreens. There were papers on the table. He flipped them over too quickly. You're selling the house? We're discussing options. Same phrase, like a virus. I looked at Mom. She sat near the window, wearing that same blue sweater she'd owned for at least 10 years. Sitting unusually straight. People sit like that when they're trying not to cry in front of others. Mom? She gave me this terrible little smile. The kind people use when they already feel guilty for becoming inconvenient. Everything's fine. Nothing is more frightening than hearing your parent comfort you in the voice of a child. Michael stood up immediately. Don't start, Nora. Her blood pressure's already bad. I didn't start anything. I can see your face. That was the real issue. Not yelling, not conflict. My presence interrupted the quiet version of events he was trying to create. There was still an old Chinese takeout magnet on the fridge from a restaurant that closed before COVID. For some reason, that almost broke me. The house still looked alive, and they were already discussing it like an asset. Then something tiny happened. Mom tried getting up to make tea, and Michael said, Mom, just sit down, okay? Jesus. Not violently cruel, just impatient, automatic. He didn't even look at her. But she sat back down immediately, like someone trained not to become a problem. I had to step outside before I said something ugly. I stood in the yard staring at the crooked basketball hoop Dad installed in the 90s. Michael came out 5 minutes later. You're overreacting. She doesn't want to sell the house. She can't live alone. Then hire help. With what money? I stared at him. Michael drove a brand new Tahoe. Kelly carried handbags worth more than my rent. But suddenly, there was no money for a caretaker. He saw the thought cross my face and instantly got defensive. You always think you know better than everyone. There it was. The conversation stopped being about Mom and became about our assigned family roles. I was difficult. He was trying his best. Convenient. How much are you getting for the house? Jesus Christ, Nora. How much? He told me. And for the first time all evening, he looked away. That's when I understood something worse. They had already made the decision. A week later, Mom slipped in the bathroom. Nothing catastrophic. Bruising. Fear. One night in the hospital. But afterward, Michael pushed harder. This isn't safe anymore. You need supervision. You can't handle this alone. Sometimes he said it to her. Sometimes to doctors.
Sometimes to me, like we were all participating in the same negotiation. Then Mom started repeating his phrases back to us. I don't want to be a burden. People disappear long before they die. First, they lose ownership of their own words. I started visiting more often. Boxes appeared in the garage. Dad's tools disappeared. Kelly started visually measuring rooms when she thought nobody noticed. And Mom got quieter every week. Not because she agreed, because she was tired. Everything finally cracked on a rainy Friday evening. I brought soup over. Michael was inside talking to a realtor in a gray sweater. They didn't realize I'd walked in. I heard, if we sign before November, it'll be easier. Then Mom's voice.
I just don't understand why it has to happen so fast. Silence. The kind where decent people usually soften. Instead, Michael said, irritated, "Because otherwise this whole thing gets dragged out again." Again. Like her continued existence was slowing down a transaction.
I walked into the kitchen hard enough to make the realtor jump.
Nobody looked guilty. That was the worst part. They looked tired, like people who had already explained themselves enough times internally that they fully believed they were right. Mom sat there in wool socks, looking very small. Then quietly said, "I don't want to leave." That was it. No speech, no somatic moment. Just the truth. And Michael instantly became angry. Not because she said something horrible, because she said it in front of someone else. He started pacing around the kitchen, talking about responsibility, bills, pressure, how nobody helped except him. And at some point, Mom started crying. Very softly, still apologizing between tears. That's when something inside me finally broke regarding my brother. Not because of the house, because he never even noticed she was crying. He was too busy trying not to look like a bad son.